Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Teacher Transition Expert Series. Today, we are joined by Kelsie Marks. Kelsie is a former preschool teacher turned high school counselor who has now transitioned into helping teachers make the transition through her company, Educated Exit. In this interview, we talk about exactly what made her transition, the hard truths of sometimes maybe choosing a profession that might not be for you, and what it takes to actually make the transition beyond the classroom. Kelsie is full of tips and tricks to make your transition a reality. So tune in, turn it up, and as always, let's get ready to do this. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Leena Marie Saleh, the Edtech Guru. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me on this journey, for all the support that you give me, and for following along. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and let's get ready to do this. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Teacher Transition Expert Series. Today, we are joined by Kelsie Marks. Hi, Kelsie. How are you doing today? Great. We are so excited to have you on and to share about your services and just to learn about your journey. So we always like to start off with just a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is really a career highlight for myself today. I never imagined that when I started my career as a preschool teacher, I would end up on a podcast talking about teachers leaving the profession. So yeah, this is wonderful. And I'm so excited I get to share everything that I've learned through my own transition with your audience today. A little bit about me. I started my career really as a preschool teacher. I wanted to be a teacher my entire life. I literally played school as a kid. I had stuffed animals that I would take attendance with, and I would make my grandpa be my student. And I probably wasn't the most effective teacher at that time, but I did love it. And I graduated from college with a bachelor's in psych and went right into teaching preschool, like I said. And I did that for about 2.5 years. And really, after 2.5 years, I was like, okay, I think I can do more than be with preschoolers all day. And that's when I really started looking into advancing my career as an educator. And if you're in the education profession, you know that sometimes that can be really hard. And many times, the only way to really advance as an educator is to get another degree. So at that time, I left my job as a preschool teacher, lived with my family, and I went back to school full time for a master's degree in education with an emphasis in counseling, specifically in college and career readiness. And that's kind of how my career now really started. I really just wanted advancement for myself. I was ready and willing to put in that work. But obviously, as we know, the education system has things and challenges that make career advancement hard. And so for me, once I got my master's degree, I worked with high school students and then I worked with college students. At that point, I really thought I could do more. I was really under the impression, if you want to call it brainwash, by the education system that I was not doing enough or I was not as effective as I could be. And that's really when I started to look into leaving the education system. I was ready to leave the education system for a lot of reasons. A lot of them were personal reasons, like my mental health. I couldn't afford gas in my car. I've talked about that openly on LinkedIn. I had really unrealistic hours. But another huge part of that was I felt like I could do more, like many other educators. I really felt like I could do more. And I really felt like maybe if I went into ed tech and helped other educators advance their career services offerings, then I was really kind of hitting the peak of my professional career in terms of doing the best I could as an educator. But when I went into ed tech, I quickly learned it was not for me. And I think that all these teachers that want to go into the ed tech space, that's great if you really know why you're going into ed tech. if you really understand what it is that's driving you out of the system, what it is you have to offer, what it is you can do in that organization, then yeah, EdTech can be a great fit. But if you don't fully understand that, that can be really hard. That was a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
That's a great answer. And what I love about all these like series and about people leaving the classroom is just that everybody has such a unique story for how they get to where they are. But I especially like how you talked about when you went into ed tech that you found out that it wasn't for you. Can you talk a little bit more about that piece?
Sure. So I was in a very technical role. And up until that point, I had really more of like a people facing role. I loved working with students. I loved working with administrators. I loved being creative. I did events. I did all kinds of stuff. But in my role in ed tech, it was very tech savvy, very kind of analytical, very left brain, that sort of thing. And I did have that aspect of working with people and doing training and answering questions and kind of being on my feet and thinking type of role, but it wasn't to the extent I was before. And that was really hard to get used to. I was used to being in a position that I was literally client facing with students, with administrators, with ed tech reps, with recruiters all the time. And then to go where I was just sitting behind a screen and responding to emails or answering the phone and that sort of thing, I just quickly learned it wasn't my style. And I'm a huge people person. I want to interact with you. I want to get to know you. And I kind of had a come to Jesus moment where I was like, yeah, I like this job. I really like what I do. I really think I'm helping people, but I don't know if this is truly what I'm like called to do, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Whenever people transition, they always think that they need to be stuck and that they're just going to be like stuck in ed tech or, not
Yeah.
think about tech or, anything like that. But I think when you are really transitioning into a new career, you do really need to think about, what exactly is this role? What does exactly does it entail? And I think that that's where like that networking piece comes in, like making sure that you do that like research because a job description looks great.
Yes.
It looks
Every job
amazing. And you're like,
description looks
oh,
great.
wow. Okay, great. And so you're looking at it and you're like, oh, that's amazing. And that sounds like the perfect fit for me. But you may get into the role and you may not, feel like it's a really good fit for you at that time. I just want everyone to know that it is okay. It is
Yes.
okay to know once you've made a transition, even in teaching. You may teach first grade and you're like, oh, I don't really like this. And you may go and teach eighth grade and you may have like the best life ever because you're so excited about that. So I think it's okay to know that change is okay.
Yes.
And I think
And
that that's an important thing to know.
yeah, and that's something that I a lot of times talk to our clients about is that it's okay to enter this space, the teacher transition space and not know what you want to do. That's actually very, very normal. It's not okay to just pick a job because it's trendy or because everyone else is doing it. More than likely, if you choose your next career path in that way, you're also going to feel burnt out. You're also going to feel unfulfilled. And that's why I on LinkedIn speak a lot about what are your values? What do you want your life to look like? I did not have someone coaching me when I left EdTech, or excuse me, when I left education for EdTech. And was it the wrong decision? I would say no, but could I have made a better one? Absolutely. Could I have done a million other things? Absolutely. Did I love the organization I work for? Absolutely. Did I love my team? Absolutely. But you really need to understand you, yourself, your life, your values before you can just jump ship, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we'll get back to that and we'll transition back to that in just a minute. But so you mentioned, that you moved to ed tech and now you're doing the educated exit. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that and then exactly like what does a day in the life look like for you?
Sure. So after my time in ed tech, there was a global pandemic and there was a lot happening in my life. And I chose to take about 18 months away from my career. And I understand that not everyone has that luxury. There was a lot happening in my personal life. The world was coming to an end, essentially. And I just felt at that time in my life, I really needed to take a step back. And that's when I really did some internal work and really figured out, wow, I could be happy doing other things. Like, there's a lot that I'm passionate about. So when I really entered back into the workforce is really when I met Chris, my boss, I should say, my boss and CEO, Chris McLean. And I worked with him for a while, kind of trying to enter back into the job or workforce, I should say. And I went on a lot of interviews. I think I went on, I don't know, maybe half a dozen interviews. And there was just nothing that was sparking joy. And so he really approached me and said, kind of what if we worked together? You have experience writing resumes. I have experience coaching, doing career coaching. I had come from a background of college and career readiness. So I kind of knew the ins and outs. I had worked with recruiters before. I had worked with students. I had worked with educators. So I really kind of had all that background knowledge. And when we kind of came together, that's kind of when the idea exploded and became Educated Exit. But really, a day at Educated Exit can look like email communications all day and maybe a Peloton session at night for me. I do meet with Chris a lot about the vision and the values of Educated Exit, where we're going as an organization, how we want to grow, what our message and our tone is to educators. And I also write a lot of resumes. I write anywhere from like 10 to 15 resumes a week sometimes. And I love that. I love kind of wordsmithing around with what educators do and what they're capable of. Because sometimes I sit there and I write and then I hand back the resume or I send back the resume, I should say, and people are shocked. They're like, oh my God, I actually do these things, but I would never think to word it that way. Or I can't believe you were able to translate my skills like this. And seeing that joy is always really fulfilling. And for me, it really kind of goes back to like why I entered education. Like I entered to make an impact on people's lives. And that's really what I do. I get to impact people's lives and careers every single day. And every day looks different, but every day, not just me, but the entire Educated Exit team is making a difference in people's lives.
Such an important aspect. I think I can tell how much you have joy and how excited you are about the work that you're doing. And that's just it's just an important distinction that people should make. And I've talked about this before, but like we spend most of our life working. That's just the
Yes.
reality of the situation. So if you're not enjoying what you're doing or passionate at least about the work that you're doing, and you need to find a place to do that, whether that's personally, maybe it's not in your like, professional life or anything like that. But I think it just makes such a huge difference when you actually enjoy and you're passionate about the work that you're doing. It
Yes,
translates into everything throughout the rest of your life too.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's important.
So at Educated Exit, you mentioned that you do resumes and, do a lot of that like career coaching and communication and sorts of things. What other sorts of resources and things do you guys provide for those looking to make a transition?
Every single day, Chris and I post on LinkedIn giving away free resources for educators. That is internal questions to ask yourself, questions you can ask and have discussions with your family, your loved ones, your spouse about leaving education. We give away resume resources. We give away, interviewing resources. We give all of that away for free to our audience. Additionally, on top of that, we have resume and cover letter writing services. That's a tongue twister that are paid for through our website. We provide full service career coaching, which means from the time you're ready to exit education to the time you're ready to sign an offer letter, we provide coaching, essentially holding your hand through the entire step of the way. Many people are not ready for that type of coaching, but it is something that we do. We provide career clarity calls so that if you're struggling with some of those kind of internal questions to ask yourself, we can help provide some guidance on that. We provide tons of blog posts about resume formatting, cover letter formatting, interviews. We try and give as much away for free as possible because I know it's hard. Like, there's lots of resources and you're overwhelmed, and sometimes you just don't want to pay, and that's okay. Our resources, for the most part, are free, but there are, leveled up resources for cover letter writing, resume writing, interview prep, that sort of thing.
And if you're not already following Kelsie or Chris, it's really important to do so. And that information will be linked below regardless. Let's talk a little bit about resumes. And obviously, over the past year, we've seen like more of a transition of people really getting their resumes completed. And when people send me their resumes, it's almost an instantaneous understanding if they got a resume done by like a resume writing service that doesn't know teachers, or they got their resume done through yourself, or, we've had Aaron Luber on. It's just much more clear to know the difference between the two. So how can we kind of more clearly lay out the distinction between somebody that doesn't have any experience and then working with someone like yourself to help provide that resume service?
Sure. So I think there's a really common myth that really needs to get talked about first. And I think that's something that we see at Educated Exit a lot. And that is, oh, I'm going to job search. Let me dust off my resume and start putting it out there. And that's really the very last step in the process. That is after you've assessed your values, after you have a full understanding of what certain jobs do, what you want your life to look like, who is going to help you get there. That said, when you go to look for a resume writer, a career coach, here at Educated Exit, we do see a fair amount of people who have been scammed, and that's really heartbreaking. And so I always tell people to, number one, trust your gut. Something feels off, then it's not right. Number two, if they have been an educator and are now helping educators, how long have they been helping educators, right? Because if they just transitioned last year and now they're helping people, chances are they may not be as qualified as you may think. And that's no hate to any creator, but you're really looking to work with someone who has experience in, management, in recruiting, in HR, in education, some of those really complex people facing business development roles that have seen what hiring actually looks like. What is the education system actually like? And that can be like a huge challenge to find. But there are people who are out there that are helping people like us and others. But here at Educated Exit, I always tell people we have 45 combined years of hiring experience. That's a lot. We have a 3-person team that's all they do is help educators. We've been educators. Chris, our CEO, has been on the receiving end of 5,000 different interviews. He's hired people, everyone from entry-level employees to C-suite executives. Maggie is our outreach specialist, and she has worked with everyone from Costco employees to principals, administrators, teachers, first-year teachers. I myself have worked with administrators, recruiters. I've worked with event planning staff. I've held career fairs. I mean, we have really seen what hiring looks like from the bottom to the top. So we are ready and able to give you the one-on-one service that you're more than likely going to need in order to successfully leave the education system.
When you said that the resume is a last step in the process, I can't say anything that is more true than that.
Yeah.
You cannot get a resume You should not be doing your resume until you figure out a pathway. And that looks like making a list and auditing your life. That means networking with other people to see what they do in a day in the life. That could be doing YouTube research, it could be listening to a podcast, it could be any sort of that thing. And then once you get an idea of what exactly that role entails, then you can move into the resume writing piece. And that's important for a couple of reasons, which we kind of talked about off air, is that you have to actually modify your resume for each job posting and specifically for each career field that you go into. So like somebody will come to me and be like, okay, I do instructional design. I'm a graphic designer. And I also want to get into customer success. Your resume cannot tell three stories. Your resume needs to tell one single story because it is a reason for why they need to hire you for that position, not a jack of all trades, while you may do that. And that's important. And you can say that in different ways throughout the resume, but like you really do have to choose one avenue to travel down at first.
Yeah. So I think you touched on a lot of really great subjects, but I want to go back to this day in the life thing for a second. And one thing that I'm seeing a lot of, especially with younger teachers, is they say, "Oh, I saw this day in the life of so and so on TikTok, and I think that's what I want to do." And it's like, okay, great. That was a 3-minute video of them showing the highlights of their day. Have you done research to fully understand what that person does or that type of role does during the day? Because I'm telling you right now, a 3-minute video of their apartment, their work from home setup is not an adequate uh, research project. So, really, truly, you need to do your research. That is holding informational interviews. That is following these people on LinkedIn. That is, you know, reaching out to people in your circle of family and friends, talking about what other people are doing at their jobs. It is not a 3-minute TikTok video. That might be fun to watch. You might find that entertaining, but that is not adequate research.
No, and the 3-minute video doesn't entail all the meetings that you're doing or what you're doing in a day to day. Like it doesn't really accurately depict what you'll actually be doing. So while that's great, I mean, spark that like sense of joy for you, which is
Yes.
great. You have to do more research, more thorough research into what exactly that entails. Because even a role at a company that is a customer success manager, let's say at Google, and then a customer success manager at Target. You're going to do two totally different roles sometimes. And so that is important for why you should do the research.
Exactly, exactly. And that is why personally I am a very strong proponent of informational interviews, because when you show up prepared to that informational interview, you have questions prepared on what to ask, and you're there literally for the sole purpose of asking questions, not a favor, not a handout, not a referral, nothing else. You're there to ask questions. You're going to get so much valuable information. And it's going to be real. It's more than likely going to be unsugar-coated, depending on who you talk to. But it is going to tell you so much about what that position actually entails, that sure, those 3-minute TikTok videos are great, but that's just 3 minutes of someone's day.
Mm. Let's talk a little bit about the informational interview because I get this question a lot. Like, what do you mean by an informational interview? So maybe you could guide them a little bit about what exactly is an informational interview?
Sure. So we at Educated Exit define informational interview as interviewing someone in the position in which you hope to hold. That's it. So if you're looking to go into customer success, what I generally recommend is start holding customer success informational interviews with people who are at different stages of their career. So that is someone maybe who recently transitioned into, customer success. That is someone who has built their whole career on customer success and has been doing it for 7 to 10 years. That is someone who's maybe at the VP level of customer success. That spread, I should say, of experience and kind of industry knowledge that you're going to get from those three different kinds of interviews is really what's important, because you're hearing about someone recently transitioned, someone who's been doing it their entire career, and someone who's really kind of at the peak of their career. So you have that wide range to draw on and to ask questions about to fully understand if you think you could be doing this long term. Is this a stepping stone job for you? Is this something to get your feet wet to go into management? Those types of things are really important in understanding, is customer success right for me?
Exactly what you said. It is. And please come prepared with questions. There's
Yes,
nothing else I
absolutely.
can say, but like you got to come prepared and think about 3 to 4 questions that you could ask someone. They're not going to give you an hour. It's,
Yes,
everyone's time is money. So think about what can you cover in a 15-minute time frame that gives them 30 minutes of conversational pieces that you can ask. And
yes,
there'll be questions that pop up that you'd be like, oh, actually, on that note, I would love to know more about this. And you can ask them to expand on that. But I think giving people an insight about what an informational interview is. And I
yes,
really like what you said, a beginning, middle, and kind of not end, but like, has been a season, I would say seasoned, well-seasoned customer success
yes.
person is important. We didn't really talk about this before, but just popped into my mind. Since you do work at Educated Exit and you guys do career services, is there a role that teachers don't often think about when making a transition?
I have had people come to me with wanting to do everything and anything you can think of. The top positions that I see from people are instructional design, curriculum design, kind of ties together, customer success, and project management. Those are kind of the three big things that I see. However, we have helped people go into business development. We've helped people go into marketing. We've helped people go into recruiting. We've had people start businesses. We've had people go into product management. I mean, you name it, we've probably seen it. But I think when teachers really enter this like transitioning space where they're in between, they're just looking for something quick and easy. And for them, that's instructional design, project management, customer success. They know how to do those things, right? But really, that's where the assessment of your values and your skills really comes in, because there are so many options. There literally are so many. And, even just sitting here talking, like, I can think of, I've had a data analytics person. I've had a banking person. I've had, full-time content creation for brands and started a business that way. I mean, we've literally seen it all. So it's really up to you to decide what is next for you.
I've just seen so many people being like, oh, I'm just going to go straight to customer success, or I'm just going to go straight to ID.
Yes.
And I just caution that. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but those are the most concentrated.
Yes.
Like if you think about a customer success role, because it seems like such a natural fit for teachers, that is going to be so competitive, like so
Yes.
highly competitive, that when I've been meeting with teacher transitioners recently, I've just been like, hey, you should really evaluate all the things that you like, all the things that you care about, all the things that you're passionate about, because this is becoming a very highly saturated market
Absolutely.
right now. So it's just something to think about. So I love that you say, finance, data analytics, which sometimes I feel like is my missed calling. Like there's all these other things that like you could think about and go into. So I love that you say that, and that, really just knowing that there's not just a singular pathway to go. And that's really important.
Yeah. And like even within, customer success or uh instructional design, there are many different avenues. Like, if you look at an instructional design job and it's more creative than it is, like curriculum building, you need to think about that. Like, are you really a creative person, or do you like writing the curriculum? Because there's really two different avenues you can go with that. And same with customer success. Like, do you want to be the one answering questions, or do you want to be the one like teaching product demos? Like, there are so many different options that just, picking the top 3 or the top 4 and saying, I want to go do this, it's likely not going to turn out the way you want it to.
Yes, that's my favorite takeaway. So as we always wrap up all of our interviews, we always like to hear from you, basically your top tips or tricks. I know how much you love this, about teachers making their transition basically a reality.
I would say before you ever look at a resume or look at a job description, you need to sit and think. What do I value? What do I want my life to look like outside of education? Where is my career going? And how do I get there? That's it. You need to understand yourself before you can start putting yourself out there. In terms of resumes, I would say for us at Educated Exit, we focus heavily on a one-page resume for sales and marketing value. I will live and die by the one-page resume format, and I've seen a lot of success with it. So one page, that's all you need. Keep it clear, concise, narrow margins, Times New Roman font. That's all you need. In terms of getting to that place of actually landing a role and being ready to sign an offer letter, do not be afraid to put yourself out there. It's going to be hard. No one ever said it was going to be easy, but you need to be willing to get uncomfortable and put yourself out there, because that is how growth and change happens. And it's so much easier said than done, but the most successful clients that we've had have been out there networking, out there talking to people, and getting uncomfortable in their own skin.
All really, really great tips. Well, I'm so happy that you were able to join us today for this episode. It was really great having you on.
Thank you. I really enjoyed being here, and I'm happy that I was able to add my 2 cents. And I want every teacher to know that you can make a change in your life. It's going to be hard and it's going to be scary, but honestly, you are worth it and you can do hard things.
I absolutely agree. And I preach that all day, every day, that it's going to be hard. It's just like, it's a very isolating, I don't want to say if isolating is the right word, but it is a very like daunting, challenging process because you are just doing something you don't know. It's so unfamiliar, unknown, uncomfortable. And so I think it's okay. And I love that that's like your takeaway advice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Teacher Transition Expert Series. All details will be linked in the episode notes, and we will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. You've made it this far. We are so thankful that you're here. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, thumbs up, comment below, and join us for all of our next videos. Thank you so much for joining us as we disrupt education together. See you guys soon. Bye, everybody.